going on, you guys? Welcome back. Last video we got our fuse / relay panel installed in the Mustang, got our fuel pump, water pump, and our air compressor for our boost controller wired up, and got the car fired up for the first time in a while. It's really nice to hear this thing run. But before I can continue working on this car and start installing all the upgrades I have, I do need to start finishing up some of the other projects I have around here. And some of you may remember, or if you haven't seen it, video before that Mustang is we tore this 4R70/75E transmission down. It belongs to my wife's uncle in his 07 F-150. In case you haven't seen that video, it was brought to me because, well, apparently it wouldn't go into gear unless you revved the thing close to about 4,000 RPMs, which is really bad for those things. And once it got to that, it would engage really hard. Just unsafe to drive, really. But when I got a hold of the truck, it was stuck in forward. So we pulled it out, tore this thing down, and found a couple problems off the bat. Let me show you what they were. Now, when we tore this thing down, a couple of the obvious problems were our overdrive band was cooked. We tested, this is the overdrive pin, and the pin bore in the case was wore out. So this guy here was allowing a loss of pressure. We got a new one of those and installed. Our reverse drum was cooked as well. And if you can see here, I'll use the feeler gauge. That gap right there, drum was warped, no good. Had to get a new one of those. But further tear down showed that here's our forward clutches. As you can see, they are smoked, burned. They're supposed to look like this. See if I can show you or zoom in. You can see some of the writing is still on this one. Now this is a good clutch. This is actually a reverse clutch, real similar to this one, but that's what it's supposed to look like. As you can see, these ones do not look that way. These are all gone, and the clutches are material is completely burned off these. And in between these two sat this steel disc here. Whoops. And it got so hot that it actually welded the two clutch discs to the steel disc here, causing it to stay engaged. And one of the main reasons why you had to rev it up so high, see if I can get it to focus, is because this is the seal for the forward piston. As you can see, it was coming apart, allowing a significant amount of pressure loss. Hi, Ben. So, we got all that replaced. Transmission is completely put back together, waiting for me to install it in the truck. So, what I've got to do right now is I got to get all this stuff out of the way. I got to get that truck pulled into the shop so we can get the transmission installed, get everything hooked back up, get this thing full of fluid, get it warmed up, and see if we actually fixed the transmission. Like I said, this is my first transmission rebuild, and the videos here are more or less just trying to get over the fear of tearing into one of these. And so far, this transmission is not that bad. It is actually fairly simple, pretty straightforward, especially if you got the manual. And like I said too, I will put a link to the guy. It's the transmission workbench or transmission bench. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. Super cool videos that guy did. He breaks this transmission down into like 3 parts or 3 lessons and 3 or 4 parts per lesson. So made it easy for me to watch and figure out how to tear this thing down and put it back together. So, but like I said, I gotta get this stuff out of the way, get that truck in, we'll get this thing installed, get fluid in it, get it fired up and warmed up. So, And with the help of YouTube magic, I'll be back in a second, and hopefully we'll be able to take this truck on a test drive. All right, we are on a test drive now. I'm actually on the freeway, cruising about 70 miles an hour. I'm in and out of the throttle, function testing the kickdown or the passing gear, making sure everything shifts correctly. And transmission seems to be doing pretty good. This truck, on the other hand, does need a little bit more attention. Got a wheel bearing up here. It sounds like a 10 bucket full of bolts. The engine seems to be running on anywhere between 5 and 7 out of the 8 cylinders, depending on the throttle position. But other than that, everything seems to be doing pretty good. Cruising along right now, 70 miles an hour. Just a hair over, I want to say roughly about 2150 RPMs. So far, success. I've put about 15 miles on the truck so far. But go ahead and put a few more miles on it, see how it does, and we'll head back to the house. And we're back. Took this thing on a little over 40-mile test drive. Everything seemed to do very well on it. On and off the freeways, through town, up and over the hills. So, like I said, a little over 40 miles, which I feel is a pretty decent test drive. Everything shifted fine. Transmission worked great. Went through all its gears. Overdrive on, overdrive off. Upshift, downshift, passing people on the freeway, so everything seemed to work out really well. Brought it back here to the shop, double checked the fluid was good, let it run for a little bit, had no leaks, so in my opinion that is a win, which I am very happy with because, like I said, first transmission rebuild, and everything seems to be going fairly well so far. Fingers crossed that it stays that way, but definitely a little less intimidated by it now. Gives me a little more confidence to tackle the next transmission I need to rebuild, which is my 700R4 in my 87 pickup. But that is definitely a later video. So here's some of the tools that I used to remove and install the transmission. Just some basic wrenches, some pliers, screwdriver, little hammer, pry bar. The real only specialty tools that I needed were this little guy here that we made out of 1¼ by 1¼ square tubing. Drilled some holes in it Used factory hardware to help press the accumulators down so we could get the snap rings out. And I'll put a link to this thing here in the description, so if you guys want to, you can pick up one of these. It's basically just a universal press, but I did have to modify it a bit. Right here, when they put it together, they had the little stop right here in the wrong place. So the first time I actually pressed it, it broke. So I drilled, tapped, added a screw, so now it's in the correct spot. I also had to cut the bottom down here, widen it a little bit to allow room for our input shaft on the forward drum to sit down in there, and then reinforce the front to keep it from spreading. That way it can be sat in my press I have over there in the corner. But other than that, those are the only tools I needed to rebuild that transmission. Like I said, I'll put a link to that little press in the description. Just be aware you may or may not have to modify yours. So, but that's it. Hope this helps or gives some of you guys a little inspiration to, get out there and try to do it yourself. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work, and well, it already doesn't work. Otherwise, you wouldn't be taking it apart. So, as long as you learn something, you'll be good. But anyways, got some cleanup to do. I'm gonna end this video right here. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope this helps some of you out. I will put a link, like I said, to that press in the description. Some of the measurements for our little press there for the accumulators is in the first video. Got a picture of that in there. And I will put a link to the clutch kit that I used to install inside that transmission, and I will also put a link to that overdrive pin that was cut for O-rings to help seal up the pin bore, which was probably one of the main causes of that burning up the clutches in the first place. But anyways, like I said, got some cleanup to do. I'm gonna end this video right here. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you're new to the channel and you've made it this far, please hit that subscribe button for me. Leave a comment. Definitely hit that like button, if anything. But again, thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for watching. And I'll catch you on the next one.